Hello friends, today we will discuss some points on C# programming. First one is what are for and for each loops in C#, as we already covered do and while loops in our last lecture. And next one we will cover difference between for loop and for each loop. Next one is when to use which loop, like for or for each loop. So let's begin. First one we have for loop. The definition is the for loop is used when the number of iterations is known. It allows you to control the loop with an index variable. In for loop we know the iterations, how many times we want to iterate that block of code with some specific condition. We have to initialize some specific value on that, and with the increment decrement, how we want to like increment the value or decrement the value. So we have the syntax of this for loop. First we have initialization, condition, increment, decrement. So first we have to initialize the value, what is the starting value of this for loop, and second is the condition, which condition we want to use, like greater than, equal to, less than, or equal to only. It is the condition. And increment decrement is it increments the initialization value, like if we put one value, then it will initialize it to 2 3 like that. So here we have one example of for loop. We are using this one. Let's see the example of for loop. First we have to initialize some value, then we have to put some condition, like how many times it will iterate the loop. Next one we have increment decrement, like it increments the initialized value. Then we can write any kind of a logic into this. Here we only displaying the values, like okay, we can see this. So this is the syntax of for loop. First initialize the value, like if it is a integer string like that, and second we have to put some condition, and third one is increment decrement, or how many times we want to iterate this for loop. Now let's see the output of this one. So here we have the result. It iterates 5 times, like this logic. We have programmer 1 2 3 4 5 is the initialization value, like it starts from 1 and then it increments the value and up to 5. So this is a for loop. Next we have for each loop. The for each loop is used to iterate through collections like arrays, lists, etc., when you don't need to modify the index or know the position. The for each loop is like if we want to put a condition on some arrays of strings or integer arrays like lists or any collections like that, then we can use for each loop, where we do not need the initialization value or the indexing, or we do not want to put any condition onto that loop. So we can go with this one, for each loop. Here is the syntax of this. First one, we have to declare the data type, like it is a int type, string type, char type, or var type. Or second, we have to declare the variable, and then collection, like a string of arrays, any kind of list we have. So this is the syntax of for each loop. Next we have the example of for each. We put some string of arrays values into this, and then we iterate the for each loop. For each loop, we can comment this one. First we have to discuss about some string of arrays. These string of arrays or integer of arrays we will discuss in later videos. Suppose here we put some list. So programmers. So here first we have to provide some data type, that is string, and a variable name, that is item, and into this we have to put that string of arrays, this one. Then we can iterate our code block. Console.writeLine, we can use a string interpolation for this string of arrays. So here we have the syntax of for each loop. Here we do not specify any initialization value, any like condition into this, no increment, no decrement like this. We just have a arrays list, and we are iterating through for each loop and get the values in a sequence. So let's see the result of this one. We have 3 items, so it iterates 3 times, but we do not specify any condition, any initialization value. It will like start the loop on collection, like how many collections or how many values we have into this string of arrays. We have 3 values, so it iterates 3 times. If we have 5 or 10 items, then it will iterate 5 or 10 times. It depends on that collection, not depends on any condition or any indexing value or any initialization value. Next we have difference between for and for each loop. First one, we have features like index access. In for loop we can do that index access. You can access and control the index. If we want to like modify that index or delete or update that index, we can do that in for loop, but we do not do this into for each loop. No automatic iteration, no index access. Next, flexibility, more flexible, can skip, reverse, etc. We can provide any condition into this where we can skip those index values, or we can reverse the condition with this. So this is more flexible, but not in the case of for each loop. Performance, slightly faster in some scenarios. It is slightly faster as we are using some proper conditions, and we provide some initialization value with that, but not in the case of for each loop. Next one, we have read only, allows modifying elements if index used. If we use index, then we can modify the index value with that, but not in the case of for each loop. Here we only read that items like one by one in a sequence properly. Dashboard, when you need index or conditional control. If you want to use some condition, provide some condition on some specific values, or provide some initialization value, then we can go with the for loop. Otherwise we can go with the for each loop. That is simple to use, where we do not put any condition, no increment, decrement value. It will iterate the loop in a sequence. Next, when to use which loop, like for or for each loop. So here are the scenarios. First one, we go with for loop. You need the index value. First one is the main point. If we want to use the indexing into our for loop, then we can go with this one, where we put or modify our value with indexing. Then we can go with for loop. You want to modify the collections like update or remove items by index. As I already told you, if we want to update or remove any items or any values from our collections, then we can use indexing. You want to loop in reverse, we can also do that like reverse. We can iterate the loop in reverse with the decrement. We will also see that into our later section. You may need to skip certain values. You can also do this thing like you can skip some values with conditions with that in for loop. Now next is for each loop. You want simpler, cleaner code. If you want some simple or clean code, then you can go with for each loop, because it will iterate the value in a sequence. Not like we do not provide any condition, we do not initialize any value for this for each loop. Here we can only read the data in a sequence from a collections, like if it is in a string of arrays or any kind of list we have. As I already showed you in that practical example, we do not need to modify data into for each loop, as we just want to iterate the loop in a sequence, like starting from the sequence from 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, like that. You do not need indexing into this for each loop. Next we have the summary. Let's recap everything what we learned today. First one is for gives you more control over the iterating values. First we can set the indexing value like 1 2 3 like that, and then set the conditions according to the values or the collections, or we can set the increment decrement, like we are iterating through how many times for that particular values. In for each loop, it is a cleaner syntax, or if we do not want to use any conditions, not specifying any initialization value, we do not want to use any indexing for this, then we can go with the for each loop. It directly run in a sequence with the collections. Use for when you need to modify the elements or modify the values while iterating, or you want to skip any particular values, then you can do that with for loop. Use for each when you are only reading the data and want some simple code, and where you do not want to modify the code, you do not want to delete, skip values, then you can go with for each loop. So these are the topics today we will learn. You can practice them into the Visual Studio. Let's wind up today's session. If you have any doubt related to today's topic, then you can mention them into the comment section. Thanks. See you in the next video.